Women podcast on Respect My Region Network. I'm your host, Shelbie Vasquez, and today is the first episode of Hire Women's third season. Today we have a very special guest, Holly Alberti. Before I get started, I need to share a brief update about our sponsor on this episode. Today's episode is powered by RMR Legacy Smalls, Respect My Region's cannabis flower line, available in Washington State and California. The current stains include Dedication OG, Super Mimosa, Rainbow Truffle, London Pound Cake, and Orange Sherb. Holly, welcome. We appreciate you joining us today. How are you? How's life in Massachusetts?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm great, coming at you from Palm Springs, California.
Nice, and it's.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say it's soggy here. It's all good.
A little background on Holly. We actually have had her previously as a guest on our Hire Women series, and we wanted to bring her back to talk about what she's been up to. Since our last episode, Holly has taken on a role at a different company. She is now the Senior Director of Marketing at RootedIn in Boston, Massachusetts. Clearly, there's a lot of new exciting stuff going on with RootedIn. There's a bunch of events that have been popping off in Massachusetts, and really the industry is growing and thriving in so many ways. So, Holly, can you talk to us about what you've been up to these past few months, and how are things going at RootedIn?
Sure. So, it's a little bit soggy here in Massachusetts. I was going to say to your comment about how beautiful it is in California, but that's to be expected this time of year. And things have been really great, obviously, since my transition to RootedIn, which is a great locally owned team. Really in the heart of Boston, which is pretty cool. There's a strip, this kind of boutique street that is known in Boston that has, nice high-end boutique stores. You've got your fashion stores and stuff there. And so to be able to have a dispensary in that environment is, it's special. I've been at this for a really long time, and, cannabis, a lot of times the retail locations would be kind of shunned and out of, the main streets. That's obviously changed in a lot of states. We're seeing them like right downtown, which is really, it's great to see the normalization of that. So again, to be on Newbury Street and have, the ability to really service different people in the neighborhood, but then also seeing people from all over, because we are in a tourism location. And the team is fantastic as well. It's a locally owned group.
Yes. Can you go into a little bit of who is the team behind Rooted and what makes them different and special?
Yeah, definitely. So the core founders are two couples, actually, that, have gone through the process here in Massachusetts, which I think you guys are a little familiar with over at RMR, and some of the other interviews that I've seen. People have touched upon, kind of the chunkiness of the regulatory structure and the licensing process in Massachusetts and elsewhere as well. But this team kind of got together, they raise their families and conduct other business in Roxbury, Massachusetts. So they're locals. And they were looking to be able to bring this company to the next level. They're fairly new when you think about the market here in Mass. They opened in December of last year. So we are coming up on the 1 year close very quickly. But, starting in December, again, in Massachusetts on the East Coast, in December is not the best weather here in Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. So the team has been kind of experiencing this as their firsts, and a wonderful group, that really is looking to be able to give back to the community. So some of the pillars that they instilled in putting forth this license is really, trying to provide not only generational wealth, but looking at different groups and organizations, community members, to be able to participate in the space, which I think is really unique. One of the things that they did was they did allow investors at a very low kind of threshold to come in. So there's a lot of community members. There's a lot of local people that are part of that. So, it's really cool to kind of see that fabric and makeup and the I work, directly with one of the team members, and he's very hands-on right now because, again, they're in that kind of growth stage and starting out. And so it's been really great to be able to kind of watch them go through this process. And again, I've had experience in this space. So, a lot of times it's like having that conversation of why this is a little bit more clunky than, doing something else that, is comparative to any other industry.
Rooted in the community, and I've seen
Definitely.
it definitely like fits the vibe with the rest of the street. It's really beautiful and lovely, so that's amazing. Can you please share details on where you came from, who you came up with, and what your family's stance is on cannabis, what that was all like?
Sure. So I was born in Massachusetts, born and raised primarily in Massachusetts, and then I was in Colorado and California when I got into kind of the cannabis journey. And for me, I was kind of like a late bloomer in high school. I'm an 80s baby. So when we grew up, there was a war on drugs. This is your brain on drugs. You would be deflated on the couch. This is what would happen if you consumed cannabis. And I remember the dare, like very vividly, like in middle school, a dare instructor coming in with the briefcase and seeing like that awkwardly rolled joint. Which I did, figure out how to roll one of those later in life. It was horrible looking, but I always saw this as one of those things where it was like, oh, they're telling us that we couldn't, do something like this. But my mom has a really holistic mentality on things. So I think plant medicine, when you're thinking about like echinacea and different natural herbs, was always part of our like childhood existence. So there was like already kind of this like, well, this is like a natural plant. And of course I didn't really know a lot of that until I got, into like high school. And then like late bloomer, I tried cannabis for the first time, and I was a high energy, high on life type of kid. So I found, those first couple of experiences, of course, is different, but that it actually helped me. And so when I started my career, or when I graduated high school, I started college early. I was working 2 jobs to get my college degree and kind of pay my way to what I thought was, the kind of the next step and next chapter. And that was high stress environment. And cannabis allowed me to kind of like sit with myself and whatever I was doing, whether it was my classes or, tinkering around with my first business, it really kind of allowed me to like have that space. So I wouldn't say like in my home, it wasn't something that like was like super accessible, but it was talked about every once in a while. So it wasn't like shunned where I have, friends that, like it was debilitating if they were ever to be found with cannabis. Like I didn't feel that way. And, again, as I got later in life, that's where it started to become really impactful because I was like, oh, it's helping this person. It's helping this person. Fast forward, to 2000 and whatever, 11, and I'm out in California at Oaksterdam University because that was the only place that you could go get more education about this plant.
That's amazing. You went to Oaksterdam. That's really cool. I have a very similar story. I'm kind of a late bloomer. I didn't start consuming until I was leaving high school. I knew I was going to graduate, going to be 18. And I also was in the DARE program and won the DARE award back in the day too. So you had similar experiences. Can you describe the first time you smoked or consumed?
Yeah, I was on the way to a party with my brother. Like I remember, like it was yesterday. It was one of those things. Again, I got a lot of flack from friends because I didn't consume cannabis. It was like they were all like, "Oh my God, you're high. Oh my gosh, this is weird for you to be the one kind of doing this." I didn't, it was an interesting kind of perspective, and I just remember, it was like a weird feeling. It was a little overwhelming, to tell you the truth. And I think I've put myself in that perspective sometimes when I'm talking to people, now as what I do for, a living is just, I want to try to educate people about that plant. And I try to like put myself into that perspective of like, with that first time, it was like a little intimidating. It was scary. It was overwhelming. There was like a lot of things happening.
Yeah.
And I think that that's like, what makes it special, because everybody's experiences are unique. And I encourage like journaling, especially like as you're using this as an adult. And, but it was one of those, it it was a catalyst because, again, now look back when I was in my early 20s, it was just something that I saw and had conversations with people where they were like, this is really helping me. And again, I felt the need to be able to, use, I don't know, just talk more openly about it. This is like before we have to think back to the days of like, it was just becoming decriminalized, and it wasn't so openly accepted. And I think the East Coast has been behind the ball as far as like, obviously the legalization and the normalization of conversation. So it was a little bit harder to have those conversations. And I think that's, from those, meetings with people and just trying to kind of give them advice in 2010 or 2023, like the conversations are similar, but there's just more opportunity and more resources and more examples to be able to point back to and say like, yeah, this guy is talking about it as well. There must be some validity to it.
Yes. So let's switch over to Massachusetts as a whole. Sure. Can you share your thoughts on the current state of Massachusetts cannabis?
Yeah, so like take it back to the days of like Oaksterdam. I kind of got into this as a opportunity to change how we looked at human decency, because I think that there's a lot behind cannabis and the reason that we're prohibited from the plant, right? I'm not gonna not take an opportunity to talk about what's happening on like a larger scale, but it's really interesting to see like what's kind of transpired over this time. And I was really, hopeful, we'll say, when we started the medical program in Massachusetts, back in its heyday, there was decriminalization and then a voter initiative, right? So we, the people, got a ballot initiative so that we were able to say, yes, there's medical benefit from this plant. You should be able to cultivate. You should be able to get free, safe, we'll take away the free. We should be able to get safe access to this plant at a reasonable, means. And I think that the nature of what kind of was put forth in a lot of that was really to just be able to like open up the eyes of like, this is a great alternative. We have people who are dying of opiates. We have people who have all these struggles with everything else. This makes sense. And also let's stimulate the economy. Like let's create more jobs. Let's produce opportunities for people that otherwise might not have an opportunity to do X, Y, or Z. So, being my home state, I think that there was a lot of passion here. And I relocated back in 2018, actually, and worked for some different, operators within the state. And right now, we have this interesting market where you've seen places in such a quick time, it feels like, that they've, closed their doors from a retail perspective. You've seen brands that have struggled a little bit more than some of the others. You've seen brands that have done really well and have, escalated across the states and, starting to cross over into different borders. And it's been very, it's just been a lot to kind of watch unfold in front of our eyes, because again, it's my home state. So I think I have a lot of passion behind it, but, again, there's not all negatives. There's a lot of great companies. There's a lot of great organizations that are out there that are doing well navigating through this space. And I think that as we've had to in other areas, we continue to look at the regulations. We continue to learn what's going to work and what doesn't. And then you hopefully have some common sense being able to kind of bring forth what will work for a marketplace.
Is there a Hall of Flowers over there?
Yeah, so Mitch actually got a chance to come out for the Hall of Flowers. That was something that the team, we didn't really get a chance to participate in a huge capacity with the RootedIn team. I did get a chance to attend, and again, crazy weather came through that day where, or that weekend, I think it was a couple of days or during the week that they had that. It was a great opportunity. A lot of bud tenders and folks that are in the retail environment, folks that are in the production, cultivation, being able to kind of connect and engage. And everybody was consuming, which I think for a long time has been a little bit of a challenge here in Mass. So it was great to see people, there was a lot of smiles for sure on everybody's faces.
Cool. What are brands and products that everyone in the country should know when it comes to Massachusetts cannabis?
It's all good, right? Yeah, so Mass has, I was just talking to Nimbus, and like they're a great local manufacturer. I don't know if you've ever, I probably have a sticker on my water bottle, but this is Mass Whole Mango. So they really took an approach to kind of like harness the, I'm from Massachusetts, and they tend to call us massholes, right? Like it's
Okay.
a term that of endearment, I guess. And it's a little bit cold here, it's January to whatever. So, we get a little bit hard. But I think that they are doing some really cool things where they're trying to take that kind of brand. And I was literally just on a call with them. So they're super top of mind. And they do a couple of different products in the marketplace. One of the really cool parts of working with the team at RootedIn is we get to work with, a lot of different brands, obviously everybody in the state. And then of course, those that are coming into the state from other states, we get to see a lot of different people and products and all the different things that are out there. So there's some really cool kind of local companies. Coil Brothers is another. They're a vape manufacturer. Again, they're new to the market. This is their first year kind of in operation. So it's really cool to kind of see how some of these brands are growing, but they're taking kind of like different approaches to the marketplace, because again, it is such an influx. Clevies is a really interesting brand. It's a woman-owned, and it's a tincture that you add to a box of like baking mix. So like, again, think Betty Crocker. You put the ingredients together, you put it in the oven, and you now have your brownies or your lemon
I
pound
love
cake.
it.
Yeah, it's super. Again, regulations in Mass are a little bit crazy. So she was able to, like, we're at 100 milligrams on our, I think similar, right, on the rec side or the adult side. Like you've got the 100 milligram mark. So the tincture allows you to have like a higher milligram in the total, batch of brownies once you produce them. And then it also has this like level of like DIY, fun, where people are like, you just cracking some eggs and making it at home. And again, like we see so many different like infused ice cream. The beverage category seems to be growing a lot. Like as every day there's like a new product brand that's popping. So that's exciting. And again, it's cool to see how within that category, even some of the different differentiators. Good Feels is a product that's a mass-based company, and they have drops to be able to add to your other beverages. So it's like an enhancer. Again, there's pros and cons with like canned beverages. And I think that there's ways that like some of these businesses have figured out kind of unique points that will make it a little bit different and easier for the consumer, easier for the retailer, the manufacturer. Like, again, being in the space for this, for my 10 plus years or whatever, like I look at it all connectively from the brand's perspective, not only like what's the consumer's interaction with it, but how does that handle from a transportation standpoint all the way to like retail.
Right. That's amazing. I want to look up all these brands. These really stood out to me. Are there any strains that really stand out to you in your market?
Strains, I mean, that's an interesting one. I'm going to almost have to like go back. There's nothing that's popping off the top of my head, but I think that there's a lot of great cultivators that have taken strains that have been repeated elsewhere throughout and have done a really great job at cultivating those. And then and that's again, like the new consumer versus somebody that wants to kind of explore a little bit deeper. We don't see a ton of flower is very important on our menu at RootedIn, but we also see like a lot of folks who are coming in for vaporizers and edibles, because it's like a newer, sometimes kind of curious crowd, especially if they're on vacation from another state. And this is maybe their first or like, first handful of times experiencing. They may not like care about the strain, or they're like looking for something, like they're like, I had Double Dream in Colorado and like, I want to try that again. And it's like, oh man, we don't have that exact one here, but we have something that's, applicable or close to. I was always like a sativa leaning, Jack Tangi fan for a really long time, but I've migrated recently into like more of the indicas. And I am personally, and we do carry some higher CBD strains at RootedIn, which I'm super excited to be able to offer just to customers because I think it's underrated. But higher CBG, higher CBD, other minor cannabinoids in flower, it's something that I think for me, again, personally, like I like to be able to kind of have full plant medicine and be able to utilize different cannabinoids for different times a day or different reasons.
Yeah, and more people are becoming educated on those other minor cannabinoids. And I've even seen people who I know, they have been taking a little too much THC. And then as we're getting older, it's kind of becoming a lot on the body. So some people are looking for those higher CBD products. So
yeah, there's a shout out to some new other brands too. There's a team in Mass that he's one of the CBD extractors here, Bay Street Extracts, and he's created a product that's kind of like to bring down, like if you're feeling too intoxicated, you're feeling too much THC, even just at that day, like this will kind of counteract, and it's in a tincture form. I haven't tried it yet personally. And then another team on the minor cannabinoids, Coast Cannabis, they're a locally owned, one of their founders is a woman, and they're just really great at what they do to give back here in the state. They're always like doing different community activations as well, which I super appreciate, but they very much have like tried to harness and go back into the minor cannabinoids, recognizing again that like they have gummies and some chocolates that come to top of mind, where I've had so many conversations with people who are new consumers that are looking at cannabis as this whatever, an alternative or a potential to move away from other things. And I think that they've got preconceived notions like we did from our DARE days, or from whatever, and they want something like CBD just sounds so much easier, more digestible. Like, oh, I'm not going to get high. Like, I want to be able to take a peek at this. I think that, they've done a good job at kind of like isolating. They've got a printout where it's like THCV, and it shows all the different, potential benefits that these cannabinoids will provide. So it allows that customer to kind of say like, okay, look at this is like, and again, everything's super anti-inflammatory when it comes to cannabis, but that's like one of the number one things that we all have in common, right? It's like everyone is inflamed. And so when you combine that with like these other things that it might also help with, that really kind of like sits with that consumer. And so they've, Coast has been a really great conversation starter when I'm having, whether it's at work or in my, personal and my other, day-to-day conversations, because they have that ability, it tends to lead more into like that. Again, consumer curious, or the person who's just like super saturated and we're like looking for the new journey of how to kind of like get our endocannabinoid system to its prime space.
Yeah.
We could segue into microdosing, but go ahead. No.
Well, you mentioned that I see you light up whenever you talk about brands who have community outreach. Of course, that's amazing. We love that. Also, brands that focus on education for the consumer. What would you say are also other factors that determine if a company is going to be successful or not?
I think, building those relationships with your brand partners, and in RootedIn's case too, like we're a retail operation at this point, and really trying to kind of work with our different brand partners, but extending that out as well. So one of the things that we do, because we're on Newbury Street, we try to highlight non-cannabis partners, right? So if you're like a local ceramics maker, we had this really awesome company, Solar Flare Optics, I think, and they have these bike mobile carts, and they sell sunglasses and optical glasses. So we'll invite them to come. They can set up their bike either in store, like when it's not prime weather, or outside. We have what's called Open Newbury. So for the summer, this summer, the city has been shutting down the street to pedestrian traffic only on Sundays. It's a great opportunity for the brands and businesses on Newbury Street to kind of like flood into the street. And a lot of times there's different artists, there's different makers and vendors that kind of come and join through the retail partner. And so we focus on like trying to bring in different organizations or different businesses and groups and organizations throughout our communities, and try to like just be able to, marry it with cannabis in a way and cross promote so that we can kind of like share each other's audiences, which I think is just like a very, again, a unique way to, it's a form of marketing at the end of the day, like 100%, but you're able to kind of take an interactive approach. And of course, you know, like Newbury Street, as I explained, it's like a super high-end, great zone where that brand might not have the opportunity to kind of show up in that capacity. So, you know, we're kind of leveling up and giving that space. And I've seen other dispensaries kind of, you know, do the same thing, whether it's with art and taking like amazing, beautiful art and hanging it in their space, knowing there's some traffic coming through your dispensary, right? Like that's an awesome opportunity for you to kind of showcase your passions and have an audience. I'm generalizing, but like typically, you know, people that enjoy cannabis are kind of crossing over into the art world, and music, right? So we've got RootedIn. I'll plug our event tomorrow, right? So we do these late night lit bites, and we started it because we opened our doors a little bit later. So Thursdays through Saturdays, we extended until 11 p.m. So we're like one of the latest dispensaries. You can come in and get something up until 11. So we wanted to like highlight and talk that up. We invited some different restaurants to come Thursday, Fridays, and Saturdays, and again, cross promote and be in our stores and be able to interact with our customers. And it's been great to be able to like get that audience again in front of, you know, each party. And then our customers love it because they're coming in, and we had Lolita that did little tacos. They were delicious. And, you know, Capo's coming in tomorrow. They're a Boston restaurant. Amazing food. I'm like really excited. And then we have a local DJ Stenny will be in the house as well. So he's going to be, you know, providing some tunes. And so now we've kind of created this experience where, sure, we're a retail dispensary, but, you know, for a little bit of time, you're going to be able to kind of have this opportunity to have, you know, a nice little interaction when you're coming in to buy your cannabis. And then we hope that you know, follow and engage with this company. If you've never gone to, you know, try their food before, maybe you'll check it out on one of the days. And we found some great traction from being able to collaborate that way.
Heck yeah. I think that definitely determines what the cannabis company is going to be successful. Pair it with food, always.
Oh my goodness, right?
As a professional, what is your day-to-day in terms of preparation, organization, execution? What does that look like?
Ooh, that I didn't. Yeah. So that's, I'm not prepared to answer this question, and, you know, quite honestly, but I'll give you my
like,
spiel.
Yeah. Day-to-day, work day.
But I can make it work, Shelby. It's crazy, you know, like we were joking about this earlier, is like the planning, right? So I worked in the footwear industry, and we were working on new designs and development for, you know, different sneakers, like 3 years in advance. And when we were putting together our go-to-market strategy for that one, you know, new model of footwear, we'd have a huge amount of time to obviously prepare and plan for that. And it would be, you know, a great process. The cannabis industry is completely different. And, we tend to have to like bend and flex. So my days definitely fluctuate based off of, you know, what the current projects might be. But with RootedIn, you know, I head up their marketing department, and again, a smaller team. So we are, you know, kind of working through a lot of the user experience, making sure, obviously the importance of like what's happening digitally, because we're all glued to all of this all the time. And, you know, making sure that obviously everything that we're doing, that we're like highlighting, we're talking about, which can be a lot. Like there's a laundry list of events and all the things that we're doing. There's always new products coming in the door. There's always different events that we're participating in, and, or, you know, just community things that are happening. So we really try to kind of like focus on, you know, that experience. And then, you know, I extend out to, you know, I've got people who I'll go and speak at different events or something like this, and, you know, get in front of different audiences, you know, but that's really kind of the day-to-day with Rooted. And like I said, the cannabis industry is like, we have meetings, we'll plan out our meetings, and then something will happen, right? Like whether it's our brand partners, like I got to push back our meeting or whatever the case may be. Like, again, some of that stuff is super flex at the end of it.
True that. So, okay, we're going to switch over to this good part. Well, I'll ask you some questions, and you just say the first thing that comes to mind, like a hot take series. If that's okay with you.
Sure.
Okay, awesome. We'll start with basics and then dive in deeper.
All right.
What moment or experience was absolutely instrumental getting you into cannabis?
Damn. Okay. So, again, I didn't get a chance to really review this beforehand. I feel like, there's been a lot in my experiences. And I think that, one of the, like on the personal level, I had a friend, who was, a senior to me. It was one of my best friends, and they always consumed cannabis. Like even when I was in high school, like it was just like, part of their persona. So it was like nothing. But they always used it for a number of different reasons. When they ended up getting sick and getting towards that kind of terminal side of life, cannabis has 100% in my eyes, again, what I've seen, has done amazing things for people. And I think it was like one of those times where I was like, wait a second, like why is this a thing? Why are we not, talking more about this plant? And there's a few other people that I can think of, from a beneficial standpoint that, whether it's their children that have kind of had those moments, or in the case where, again, somebody else, they were affected in a negative way when it comes to cannabis, 3.5 more times likely than me, just because of the color of their skin. And that shit is wrong. And I get really fired up. And when I looked back, I started learning, like, again, this is like before the Oaksterdam days, but I think Oaksterdam really gave a great like understanding of like the history, the politics, the culture, like prior to 1937, like having this be part of our pharmacopoeia, having this be part of our medicines, having this be part of cultures for thousands of years, but having it so denied and prohibited, like just stopped my world and was like, okay, let's look more, because this is just one thing. We have been prohibited from this plant. It's been used against several groups of individuals, and it's fucking wrong, like just straight up. And that was a pivotal point in my life. Like I shouldn't be denied. Nobody should be denied. This is the reality of it. And I think it pulls on heartstrings. And I think the majority of like mainstream got a taste of this when Charlotte Fiki was able, to have her story told on a platform that a lot of people were able to kind of digest easily. I remember my grandmother calling me. She's not longer with us, but that was, 10 years ago. And she's like, Sanjay Gupta's on TV talking about this. And those things I'll never lose that moment, because I remember how it's, to me, it was like, this is so impactful already, but you can't see that. And I want to try to be able to bring that to you in a way that you can digest it. And if that means some child being able to have a better life, does that mean somebody at the end of their lives to be able to have, 6 months a year, whatever that might be, or if that's somebody choosing a herb over a pharmaceutical, again, all of these things to me were, just a couple of those pivotal points. I think that really, why I kind of chose to kind of leap out of my traditional careers and say sayonara and embrace this space, kind of full on.
Yeah, you have the same passion, definitely. The injustice, being a part of the history and the culture, and then just knowing that we are helping so many people now away from pharmaceuticals and just a better way of life. Thank you for that.
Of course.
What kind of music do you vibe out to?
So I'm like, I have my donuts on. So like anybody who's a fish fan will understand that.
Yeah, I've been to a fish fest before. That was the best thing ever.
It's it's a whole thing, and I've been seeing them for over 20 years, which is kind of crazy and fascinating when you think about it. I do like, what they bring to the table. There's Sound Tribe Sector 9, which is like another kind of, again, different genre.
Too,
STS 9. Yeah. So, they're kind of like considered jam bands, but, I really like have a place for I grew up listening to the Beatles and a lot of kind of like the classic rock genre of like the 60s and 70s. And then I really just appreciate like Motown and a lot of like old school, music. There's definitely some new things that are coming out, or like, things that I've been introduced to over time too, that I think are just again, I love how people can manipulate sound and vibration to be able to kind of like make us feel the way that we do, for sure.
Totally. Cool. So I would Fish, STS9, Motown. Do you think those are your top 3 artists? Or
we'll say, I mean, yeah, that's fine. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Cool. I love that. What are your absolutely necessary items for your favorite smoke sesh?
Necessary items? Okay, well, if it's a smoke session, so you just kind of like confirmed, right, that we're smoking, we're not vaping, right? There's so many different options.
Mm-hmm.
I would say, good company is probably like setting, like good company and where you're at, are kind of like the essentials that I'd like to bring to every kind of session. But in reality, I think it's quality product.
Mm-hmm.
And like everybody's got their choice of consumption. I still very much like to smoke. Years back worked in a different space, and it was like, harm reduction is really important, right? So like, what's the most effective way to ingest your cannabis or cannabinoids? Like, I just there's something about smoking that I feel like works for me, and I do still very much enjoy it. So,
Are you a joint, pipe, bong, gravity
I'll,
bong?
not so much the gravity bongs, although those new ones are like, easy to operate, but I have like a nice little bong that's like perfect. You can put ice into the chamber, to get cool hits. But I do have like a couple of pipes that are just like the go-tos. I feel like joints, I prefer joints, and I've broken them down. Like I feel like a lot of people on this train, right? Since like 2020, we were solo seshing. Like I can't consume a gram in a session by myself, like effectively. So we all kind of like started making them shorter and shorter and shorter.
Mm-hmm.
And so even with like a pre-roll, if I buy one at the dispensary, I'll take some of it out and, waste the paper essentially, but just to be able to like have more, because I don't want it to be like when you relight it and it doesn't taste good because it's already been like snuffed out and stuff like that. It's just easier. But yeah, like some of the small ones are, super convenient. And then of course, like you can just roll up your own into a mini, and make it work that way.
I'm not the best at rolling. I'm still
Oh,
practicing because I'm
I don't.
a person for sure.
Do you? So I'm not a good roller still to this day. Even like the old school ones, like it's so much easier. It's so much easier to stuff a cone. So that just is
technology, but yeah.
I mean, they have those little grinders that you can get that will do the whole thing for you, which, I haven't tried some of the new ones, but the old school ones, like they didn't work the best.
Yeah.
Like I struggled with a few of them, but like for me, it was just for the cones, it just makes it simple. It's easy. It's good to go. And I don't have to like worry. A lot of people like super ritualistic, and I have some really good friends that can roll amazingly like nice straight joints and everything else, but I'll just stuff it up. It'll be a lot easier.
Maybe we'll get there and go off at parties.
Right?
What is your favorite munchy food or drink, or food and drink that you cannot live without?
I mean, I water, like I'm a hydrator. So if, that's my go-to thing for everything. And anybody who knows me knows that I'm like, I'm always telling people to drink water. Depending on where you're at too. Like I'm ocean level. So if you go to Colorado, we go up into the mountains, like you got to even hydrate even more.
You did show us your water bottles.
Yeah, I got, and I had that in Colorado when I was there seeing fish recently. And, you gotta stay hydrated. Like sodas and stuff like that, I try to stay away from. But the soda waters and stuff like that, those come back and around again. But if I had to go for like, like the quintessential, like it would be like root beer and pizza. Okay. Because I feel like those two things, like my stomach's not going to agree with me with the pizza. Like man, it's all good though. Cause I love pizza, and it's one of those things where I feel like we have like a Coke or whatever and your pizza, and like, that's a stoner complimentary item right there. Everybody says donuts too. We did a donut day. Oh, and people were digging the donuts. Yeah, Backdoor Donuts came by and we did a late night deal, and everybody's like, this is super stoner food. And I was like, yeah.
Cool. I hope you guys have root beer pizza at one of your late night fight nights.
We'll do. I mean, you could even get the seltzers, right? So we like have an infused seltzer, and then we have a couple of great pie shops like close by, so we could make that happen in a heartbeat.
Love pie. What brands? I mean, you did mention some earlier, but are there any 3 to 5 brands or products that you feel represent Massachusetts at a high level?
Oh my goodness. People are going to hold me to whatever I say. I just put a post up on LinkedIn to asking about different brands in Massachusetts. Ironically enough, this was no correlation. Like I said, I didn't get these questions, but I think that there's like a ton of different brands that are out there that. So we started with this program. It was vertically integrated. So the only way that you could produce your own products was if you had, the vertical integration license, which has changed. So we have these brands like, Clubbies, which, they work with a manufacturer partner here in the state to be able to put out their products. So I think that there's a lot of brands that had, a little bit of runway in the early years to kind of establish and get that market share out there. I think that there's definitely, a handful that are they seem pretty dominant in the space. So shout out to Fernway. They're another vape cart company. They've also like migrated into flower as well. But I think that they've, really set up a solid marketing base. They understood how to kind of penetrate into the market here in Massachusetts and also expand kind of outside of Mass as well. So I feel like, that's a brand that, again, if you were to like ask somebody on the streets, like name your top without being in the cannabis industry, like name your top or whatever brands that you've seen out there. That's from Massachusetts originally.
Cool. Shout out Clubbies, Fernway, and thank you for shouting out women-owned brands as well.
Yes, of course.
Are you into any sports?
Yeah, bowling, right? That was a joke. But no, actually, I do know a few people who are like serious bowlers in professional leagues. But I remember that was one of those things that you would write in your high school bio that was like a kind of oh, you smoke weed. So like bowls, like you're bowling. Yeah.
Cool.
Right. So no, these days I do more on like the kind of from an activity standpoint. I love to hike. I love to get out into nature. Like I said, I was just in Colorado. And I like to try to do more. I'm getting, now that I'm 40, my body doesn't work and operate the same as it used to. But, I try to get out and get into nature and do, walks and stuff that's like low impact. I love to swim. We'll be getting out of the seasons that I can go to the ocean, but it's definitely something that I love. And I practice yoga as much as I can. I think that that's a great, Tai Chi yoga and a lot of different kind of like movements. I feel like that's where I'm at right now with kind of my physical activities. I've been asked to play like golf and frisbee golf like a lot recently, but my frisbee golf game is not the best. So I just go to the events, and then for the golf, same thing. Like I'm happy to be on your team, but if you're serious, I don't want to bring down your average. And I have some friends who are like really, really good golfers, and I just don't want to bring them down. I want to have a good time and see if I can hit the ball.
Thank you. Are there any Massachusetts teams that you're for? Or is your family part of?
Massachusetts teams like sports?
Yeah, just sports in general. I know in California it's like
So I had to retire from talking about sports. So we're in Boston. Yeah. So I had to retire about talking about sports in 2015. I moved to Colorado to start one of my cannabis companies. And I remember being in Manning country, and I gave my ID to the gentleman. We were going to an event. And he looked at my ID and he was like, "You're from Massachusetts. You must be a Tom Brady fan." And I was like, "Thank you so much. It's great to see you as well. Like, what floor are we going to?" And when I was kind of in that world of fundraising, it was really easy for me to like disconnect from, I didn't have time to watch sports. I didn't have time to do much of anything exactly. So I enjoy hockey because my husband likes hockey. Mm-hmm. And for everything else, it's just like, football, it's a season, like basketball. I was talking to, I won't say too many details, but one of the professional NBA players to look at licensing with a brand. And it's fascinating, right, to see like these license deals and see how that kind of translates over to cannabis. And I fully respect, every athlete that's out there. But for me, it's just like one of those things that like, I just try to, I know what's happening. My family also is not super into sports, like my immediate family. So, I mean, that might be like a thing, right? Like I have friends who, their dads played football, they played football. No, that wasn't really the thing. So I think that might be another reason. Yeah, exactly.
If I'm going to Massachusetts, are there any restaurants or food that I need to make sure to try?
So living on the West Coast, when I did, I was in the Bay Area, and it was hard to find good pizza. I'm not saying that there is not good pizza out there, because there's 100% amazing pizza in the Bay. But I feel like we do it differently on the East Coast. So I'm not going to name any places, because this will start like a heated argument again, like the Barstool Pizza people and all those that like really have feels about it. I worked at the king of dive bars. It's called Damien's in Hanson, Massachusetts. Literally, it was one of the kind of like those small little bar pizzas. There's a chunk of those in Massachusetts too. Like it's like a small little pizza, like no crust, super crispy. If sometimes you gotta get it well done. And I feel like that's like one of those things that like, again, people get super passionate and like get into heated arguments on social media about all the time. And I feel like we're known for it. Like there's some really great pizza spots throughout Massachusetts, like all over. But seafood too, I feel like, I wouldn't justify, I come from the South Shore. I've got friends who are in, the fishing and lobstering world. And like, although it might not be my favorite thing to go to, like there's amazing different, places that do really great things with seafood here in Massachusetts too. And a lot of great spots that just like have, a beautiful view as well as like delicious, amazing food to go with. There's, a handful of places like, towards the Cape. I will shout out one place is in New Bedford. It's called The Baker. They do an amazing job at like a breakfast sandwich. I know it's like one of the simplest things, but I will drive for that breakfast sandwich. It's delicious. I recommend the pre-order. The line gets a little long, but yeah, there's amazing like little hidden gems. I don't want to give them all away because it'll just make sure that it's a longer line for them right now.
Thank you. So is that part of what it means to be a mass hole? Like what other slang or what other...
Well, I don't really have an accent from what people say. Like I've gotten rid of my accent. Again, somebody just mentioned this to me last week. I was a flight attendant in a former life. So I feel like I learned how to adjust my accent. It definitely comes out at certain times. But it's funny to see like the quintessential, like when you think about like a Wahlberg or like Matt Damon, like, Ben Affleck, like doing a really bad Massachusetts accent. I feel like we're really known for that. When we were in Colorado, my husband, his accent has remained with him through the course of his life. People would be like stopping him to be like, get him to say like car, like park the car. And they thought it was the greatest thing. So I think like, there's a few things that were like the lobster bean pots, like really ridiculous accents. And then our sports teams, of course. But yeah, there's definitely, I don't know. There's some, the mass whole thing is like, so the street, have you ever been to Boston?
I have not.
Okay. So the city is a little bit hard to navigate through, like the way that it was built, and it's really old. Like it was horse and buggies. It really wasn't designed for cars. So and then the construction has grown, and like fast forward to whatever, and there's one-way streets that maybe like to an outside person doesn't make sense. Like it's challenging. I have friends from here that won't drive in the city. Like they just don't drive in the city because it's challenging. And I think that, like, again, first time I moved to Colorado, I was walking in my neighborhood and there's people across the street waving like, hi, how are you? And I'm like looking behind me, like trying to be like, who are they talking to? And that was only because in Massachusetts, like we keep our eyes down, we walk fast, we don't say anything to anybody. Like we're just on a mission, and it's cold out and like we're cranky because somebody just cut us off on the highway and it wasn't parking. You know what I mean? Like I'm completely generalizing. There's amazing, beautiful people that have vibe high, but like, there's that. I think those are some of the things that we get, like if you had to look at a Saturday Night Live skit, it'd be like that ridiculous accent and some of the crazy.
Yeah,
exactly.
What's the most slept on thing or part of Massachusetts that you want to bring to life?
The most loved?
Slept on, like people are missing out on, or
I mean, I feel like there's a lot of cool like nature spaces in Massachusetts that are underrated. Like the Boston city is great. It's a small, really cool city. Providence is obviously next door to us. It's another really cool space as well. But we have like a lot of we got a lot of chunk of stuff that's happening like in between all these hubs. And then you have, kind of central Massachusetts and then western Massachusetts, but like in between there's all these like little pockets of really cool spaces. And, some of them have like even, different attractions or things that you can go to, but some of them like are really just beautiful spaces that you can appreciate not only summertime, springtime, and fall, but like even, winterscapes as well can be really like cool and unique. I live close to Cape Cod, so Cape Cod's like, obviously very well known and just a kind of a high tech tourist space. But there are some really cool spaces that you can kind of like sneak away to down Cape in the fall and winter that, it's just a different perspective that I think people, bypass as well.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Just talking to you today, like I really didn't think of Boston very much, but now I'm very excited to check it out and check out RootedIn and all the things that you experience. What do people need to know about you before you leave? Anything that you want to leave with, or let us know what you have coming up?
Yeah, thank you. Sure. I appreciate the opportunity and your words, and thank you. And I'm excited that you guys are starting this, and I'm, really honored to be kind of on the first one, which is always exciting. RootedIn is obviously a new group. If you're on social media, RootedIn Roxbury is our handle on Instagram, because again, the team is from Roxbury originally. And that's going to be, continuation of growth for us to kind of expand out. And definitely if you're in the city, come by, check us out. They're a fantastic team, and we're always looking for different partners to collaborate with. So like anybody who's outside of the cannabis space that might be peeping on this podcast, of course, you could always reach out. RootedInRoxburyaswell.com is that the URL. You can find me all over everything, I feel like. Holly Alberti. I have some speaking engagements coming up that I'll be posting about with a couple of different groups as well, and really just trying to kind of continue out the advisement and programs that I provide with all my expertise in this space. It makes for an interesting conversation, and I get really passionate, obviously, about this plant and just being able to try to get more and more people access. So yeah, you can check out. I have my website and everything else that's out there as well.
Thank you so much. It's been really inspiring to speak to you. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for everything you do. We appreciate you joining us. We look forward to having you back again. But that is our conversation for today. Thank you all for joining us on another episode of Hire Women Podcast. My name is Shelbie Vasquez. This is Holly Alberti. Please make sure to leave us a review in the comments, like, follow, and subscribe on our Instagram and YouTube. And don't forget to ask for Respect My Region flower at your local dispensary or delivery service. Thank you so much. Stay blessed. Peace.